Europe is seeing signs of recovery, but still faces many external and internal risks as it seeks to secure sustainable growth across the bloc. Euronews was at the European Business Summit in Brussels, and Maithreyi Seetharaman spoke to German Finance Minister Wolfgang Schäuble at the closing plenary session.
Let's start from the basic premise of where you think we are on the world stage today, and where do we need to go?
I think we are at a crossroad. And I would define it in the way that, on the one hand, expectations towards Europe from all over the world are increasing on behalf of a lot of reasons, geopolitical risk and so on. And on the other hand, doubts inside of Europe are also have increased the last couple of years. Maybe it has been a little bit, there has been a little bit and some turnover since the Brexit decision of UK, but until the Brexit decision in UK, we suffered in a lot of member states, increasing Eurosceptic movement. We have to think about how we can strengthen the support in European constituencies, in the European population, for the European integration.
This is not anything new that we have to worry about, like the IMF talking about protectionism, trade wars, potentially, because you sound almost like Mr. Mario Draghi at this point, that you're not that concerned.
No, I think in Europe, especially in the European Union, growing over the decades, we have been very successful in building an integrated common market. And that is an achievement that is not really disputed by no one, except the British, the strange British people in this regard. But the rest of Europe is fine with the common market. And what we not really achieved was to do in parallel what is needed to make a common market sustainable for the future. And then we discussed, can we build a monetary union without having a political union? And we decided if we would wait until we have a political union, we will wait for another century, possibly. The problem is you need amendments to the treaty, to the Lisbon Treaty. And if you look at the Lisbon Treaty, how you get an amendment to the treaty, good luck.
Post-elections with Mr. Macron, the world seems to be expecting at some point a very strong Franco-German alliance. What's it going to be like, this new relationship? And most importantly, is it going to be good for both the people and businesses of Southern Europe?
I think it must be good for all parts of Europe. And I am very much in favor that, of course, any European integration have to work in the direction that the gap between the actually well-doing and the actually having problems will not increase the gap, but will be reduced. We need risk sharing, but if we introduce only risk sharing without risk reduction in advance, and if we introduce risk sharing without incentives to do yourself something in the right direction, we have to think how we can do it if either we have the competence to implement decisions from a central institution, Europe, or we find incentives. If everyone is doing so as well as Spain did in the last couple of years, everything is fine in the Eurozone. But Spain is an exception.
And Greece is not at some point.
Greece has a little bit more problems. Greece is not to be compared with everyone else. That is a very unique case. We know it from the very beginning. If you compare with United States of America, I'm very self-confident. Europe is not doing so bad. Don't underestimate European economies, European societies. They spend double in relation to national gross product compared to other advanced economies like Canada, Australia or US. And I think there are a lot of advantages there. So maybe some disadvantages, but take all together, I prefer the European model. By the way, the Euro crisis started with a bank which was called Lehman Brothers. And this bank was, if I am right, not located in Germany, not in Belgium, but in the United States.
With the G20 presidency, What are you seeing? Is there some sort of a rollback? Because Mr. Trump's administration and the US Treasury Secretary would love to roll things back to the way they were. How do you deal with that?
Until now, I can't see that the new administration in the United States has destroyed all the regulations we have achieved for financial markets. So there's a lot of talking in that direction, in the other direction as well. But in substance, they have declared, now we will continue. But I think protectionism is not so dangerous in Europe.
But it is around the world, would you say?
It's around the world, but Europe is fighting against protectionism. And I think we have good chances to remain convincing that open market competition are much better. Of course, if you look what's going on in China, if you look what's going on in India, if you look what's going on in the emerging economies, we move in the direction. We must not underestimate the attraction of the values and the principles of the European ecosystem. With all the problems we suffer in Europe. And protectionism is not. Fighting nationalism is a challenge for every one of us. Maybe the Brexit decision has been for some people a wake-up call. People say, oh, European integration is not so bad. You have even seen, even Madame Le Pen, quite interesting, between first and second turn in the French presidential elections, she declared she would not be leave the monetary union. Because she got polls that 75% of French population is in favor of staying.
So is the biggest risk at this point a strengthening euro for the Eurozone and for the EU overall? Because the sterling doesn't look like it's going to head in any other direction.
Everyone has to care on its own challenge. And I think the British will learn that the decision for Brexit was a mistake.
But what does it mean for European businesses or business who are dealing with a strengthening euro? Can Europe, especially Southern Europe, afford that?
Yes, of course. Spain is also part of Southern Europe. Italy have some political problems. I think the problems of Italy are mostly caused on political reasons. Too many people in Italy don't really trust to any political leader on movement, and the result is that they trust in a figure, a man who is a clown or something else. But 5 stars, Grillo. That's a proof that Italy has a problem with confidence in political leaders. But I think they will overcome. They will do it in other member states. Even Portugal is doing much better than expected.
But can they sustain that strengthening euro?
I think the growth will be higher than we expect. Germany, we expected 1.6 for this year. So in the first quarter, we had already 0.6, and therefore there is a dynamic in the economic recovery. That is for Spain, that is for Portugal, and I hope it will be for Italy and, of course, for Greece. The main discussion on a global level for me is what means sustainable growth. The geopolitical risk are the increasing gap between rich and poor. If we will not succeed to bring the gap a little bit closer, and if we will not succeed to help the Islamic world, if the Muslim world will not be able to accommodate Muslim religion with the modern world, we will suffer major new dangers for terrorists and new kinds of warfare and so on. And that is the main challenge. And on this reason, I think Europe can, if Europe is strong enough to deliver a sustainable growth and to make its own free societies in a way that people do stick together and find the right balance between freedom and equality, then we can give an example for the rest of the world. And the nervosity of any dictators all over the world is the attractivity of Western or European values.
Mr. Schäuble, thank you very much for your frank views here at the European Business Summit.